Okay, today's cardinal lesson, we're talking about bypassing probate. And you're saying again, yippee, sounds exciting to me. And I tell you, in 45 years of sitting through presentations, talking to clients, but many times I'm in the audience and there's somebody's up there they're talking about, and they just throw in bypass probate and they keep on talking. And I just have a sense that most people in the audience don't even know what in the world they're talking about. So what we're going to do is just break it down a little bit today. And first of all, we're going to talk about, like, why is this important? Why are we making a lesson on this? Is that the reason that we're going to want to bypass probate, if it's possible, with a good deal of your assets is that probate is awful. It's slow, it's expensive, it's open to challenges. It's just, you got to deal with the people at the court. I mean, if there's any way possible for your assets to transfer after your death by some other means than going through the probate court, we want to do that. So that's what we're talking about today, is by probate, the definition is the official proving of a will, the court process of distributing assets after death. I actually looked this up in the regular dictionary, not the dictionary for people like me, and came up. So it's the proving of a will. So you have a will, and then you've got to take that will, or you don't do it. Somebody does it for you, your executor, and proves that this is the valid will, and this is who gets everything, and these are the creditors, blah, 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 blah. And then what the goal here in probate is to distribute all of his stuff, because he's now deceased, to who it says in the will. And the word bypassed, it just says to go around or avoid. So I think most of you knew what bypass meant before this. So we're talking about bypassing probate. And I don't usually explain this to new clients, and I have a lot of things that I just kind of hold to myself, but I'm thinking from the moment a person sits down with me, when I'm thinking about estate planning, is that how can I set up their estate in such a way that their will is just a pour-over document, or it's a document. It's very important, but it's a catch-all document. I mean, anything that just doesn't have a way to get around probate, then probate is great. It's just there, and it's there to catch anything that's not already distributed, because probate takes a long time, especially the larger the estate. Okay, so how do we go about bypassing the probate process? And I've just listed 6 things that we're going to talk about. Number one is, when you have a married couple, is where this works the best with, is you just hold assets jointly with rights of survivorship. And, you know, I, like my wife and I, we have several bank accounts that have my name on there, and then it has her name, and it says that JTWROS, and some of you may have looked at that term for a whole lot of years. You don't even know it. Joint tenants with rights of survivorship. That's what it stands about. And so when I pass away, if I go first, there's no probate on that jointly held account, because it just now only has her name on it. Now, I'm going to caution you a little bit. A lot of people try to use this. You want to be careful about who you put on your bank account. So if you say, well, I'm going to put my oldest son, I'll just put him on there, and it'll be him, and then it'll be me, and then when I die, that'll just already be in his name, and then he's just going to distribute it to everybody. You got problems with that. What if he got in an accident? He could be sued for that money. There's a lot of reasons that I don't necessarily recommend this with anyone but your spouse or somebody that you're in a significant relationship with, where this is exactly where you want the money to go, or the money's not really going anywhere. It's just your name just is taken off. Okay, the second thing we're going to talk about is holding assets in a trust. So that is really the proverbial way to avoid probate, and there's a lot of these trust mills that are running ads, and you're going to see YouTubes on them. They may have one of these coming up on my channel when you're watching this video, where somebody's running an ad, and they're generally saying, look, put all your assets in a trust, and it's going to be a revocable trust and a living trust. You're the trustee, so it gives you control over it, but then when you die, then the trust is just still there. Your stuff's not going to pass through probate. I mean, so that's a big reason that they tout of putting everything in an asset, is just to avoid this awful probate. And there's many times I recommend this, but there's many times I don't, because trusts, number one, are expensive. I mean, it's going to cost you some money just to set the thing up, some significant money. And then the second thing is they're difficult to maintain, or you know, you're going to be the trustee of your own trust, and what I was just talking about, a revocable trust, but it's costly to maintain them. So you might want to look long and hard before you just run out and set up a trust, although there's many cases that it's good. Now, the third thing that most of you watching this video, you have a 401k, you have an IRA, or one of the two of those, or maybe if you have a 401k, you're going to ultimately roll that into an IRA that you're going to manage and use throughout your retirement. If all IRAs and 401ks have a beneficiary on them, and most of you are familiar with this because you filled it out and you maybe have changed it over time, but that beneficiary designation is more important than you have written into your will. You know, or in other words, this money is going to already be to your beneficiaries long before they're reading the will and actually distributing assets in the will. So this is, by definition, IRAs and 401ks bypass probate unless you name as your beneficiary your estate. And many people do this. And that is pretty much a mistake, is putting on a beneficiary form the estate of me. And the reason for that is you're taking something that already bypasses probate and you're sticking it right into probate by naming that as the beneficiary. There could be some situations where that's called for, so I don't want to blanketly say no, but most of them that I run into, that's a mistake, because it's got tax implications, and now you're going to have the probate official dealing with that. This can get done easily in a month after somebody's died. Okay, and sometimes quicker than that. We just need to get a death certificate up to prove that the person is deceased. And then the names and the addresses of the beneficiaries, and then we need to get their wishes as far as getting the money where they want to send it. Okay, so your IRA and if you do the beneficiaries right, is going to keep it out of probate, or it's going to bypass it. Annuities have a beneficiary on them. So by moving money into an annuity, and then most people that move money into annuities never take anything out on the back end. I mean, there's a high percentage of people that put money in annuities, they grow, they just sit there until they die, and then the annuity company or the insurance company pays off the beneficiary. It's just like a life insurance policy. Now, with annuity beneficiaries, the deferred taxes, the money that's grown that you've never paid taxes on, that transfers to the beneficiary. But nonetheless, when you stick money in an annuity, properly fill out the beneficiary, you're going to avoid the probate process. Okay? Next one is life insurance. And there's all kinds of life insurance. There's such a thing as called single premium whole life insurance, which looks and acts a lot like an annuity, but the difference is it has a larger death benefit than the amount you stuck in there. And it's the same way like all life insurance policies. You have a beneficiary, it's going to avoid probate. I mean, it's just whoever you name on that life insurance is going to get the money. The difference between a life insurance and an annuity is your beneficiaries aren't going to owe taxes on that gain, because life insurance death benefits come most of the time to the beneficiaries tax-free. And then when you take your bank accounts, your securities, your brokerage account, things that are not an IRA, most of those have a vehicle on there called TOD, Transfer on Death. And this is one of the most underutilized vehicles, as I see. I don't have statistics on all my research, but I do a lot of transactions with people and handle a lot of paperwork, and I have a lot of people coming in. And it's been my experience that people have the ability to do a transfer on death on their accounts, but they haven't utilized it. And a lot of times that's done, I think, that the person at the bank or the stockbroker or the person doing it, they've just skipped that part of the form because it's optional. But if you utilize that and you just name like Rhonda's in my account, well, that's held jointly, my wife and I, so when one of us dies, it's going to go to the other. I mean, just with bypassing probate. Well, what if we both lost our life and now it's going to go into our estate? So our estate is just, now it's going to go into probate. If we had $100,000 in the bank account, now that's going to be tied up in probate, unless we had a transfer on death. And we do have that. And a transfer on death names our two sons that just in the event of our death, both of us, that they just cut a check or open a new account or whatever they want them to do, and now it's in their name and it's all passed without having to go to the probate court. And that's different than putting their name on there jointly, because they have no standing until both of us are gone. But this is something that I would advise people do. And so when we're doing estate planning, financial planning, setting up IRAs, doing tax planning, and just setting up accounts for people, moving money into annuities, setting up life insurance, we're thinking holistically that we want to know specifically what they want, these people want to happen when they're deceased, okay, and who they want the money to go to. And then we write out beneficiaries in such a way that they're consistent and that their money is going to bypass probate. Now, it's more difficult to do that with real estate, okay, and then it differs by state. Some states make it kind of easy to actually have your home or any property you own avoid probate and just pass like a beneficiary. But so it's still necessary to have a will. When we get into this bypass probate, we're not going to be able to do that generally with the whole estate, but 80 to 90% of it, we can most likely do that. So I'm Hans Scheil, and I thank you very much for listening.